So this presentation will be on problem-based learning, also known as PBL. It can be very messy, but it's also engaging for the students, presents real-world problems or case studies, but it gives the students the chance to find those solutions. Some key features of problem-based learning, or PBL, is that it is often referred to as ill-structured, meaning where these students have open-ended problems or questions that often have no one correct answer. There's often multiple right answers or solutions, and they just need to evaluate the different possibilities and give explanations for theirs. Students will work in small groups to be able to explore or investigate and solve the problem collaboratively. The PBL approach also uses real, authentic, real-world problems or case studies that have specific context and are not vague. The students can actually perceive themselves to be stakeholders in the problems and act accordingly. Teachers just act as the facilitators or coaches to guide the learning. Students are presented with a problem. They will then define the problem and brainstorm some ideas based on prior knowledge. So it's important for students to have some prior knowledge or for the teachers to help with that. Students will sometimes engage in independent study and then come back together to share information and engage in peer teaching, perhaps teaching one another what they found, and all work together toward a solution. Students will present their solution and review what they have learned, sometimes to the whole class, sometimes to the group or to the teacher. And students engage in self, peer, and coach review of the process. So there's often peer evaluation as well as self-evaluation, not strictly the teacher or coach evaluation. So why would we want to use the PBL model? Some of those reasons would be that it promotes critical thinking skills, analytical skills. It promotes creativity, allows the students to be more creative in their work. Increases problem solving skills as well. It helps students to apply knowledge to real world situations and make those connections rather than just simply sitting and getting information passively. It also increases the interest in students and thus increases their student engagement. They become more interested in what they're doing, what they're learning. So this next part here, I'm going to show a video clip of a public high school that is going through a 5-year process to bring the PBL model to the entire school. That is not something that can be tackled overnight, and it does require time to be able to implement that. So they are going through a series of steps over the course of 5 years. And since I teach at a high school, this is So that video really showed how the students really feel like they made a difference and could see it applied in the real world. Here's some other cool links for you to check out to find out more information about the problem-based learning approach. Please check those out. Some other questions to consider. So what are the steps to designing a PBL project? What are or what might the PBL approach be, or why might the PBL approach be difficult to implement? And what are a few best practices in the PBL classroom? So take a few moments to consider these questions. So now let's just briefly talk about some possible answers for these. So it might be hard to implement this approach because it does require a lot of pre-planning to find the right problem that's both relevant and interesting for the students. And also teachers might find it more challenging because they're not able to cover as much material, or they just might be resistant to change and not want to change the way that they do things. Some steps that are involved in the designing of a PBL project, you would first want to make sure that you know what the purpose of your project or problem is going to be. In other words, look at your state standards and determine your learning goals and base your project off of that. Either create a problem or find case studies to help you that are relevant to your current standards and gather all of your needed supplies. Either create norms or rules and procedures yourself or have the students help you with that. It might be a good idea to also introduce some group work procedures and have them do some warm-up activities with that. So some other best practices for using PBL in the classroom would be to plan, plan, plan. That is the number one thing there that will really make it or break it for you. Try to find problems that are not only real life, but ones that they can really get involved and become stakeholders in the problem there. And allow the students to help find their own resources as well as providing them with some as well. And here are some of the works cited for the presentation. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed learning about and will research further the problem-based learning approach.